back again, friends, to another episode of In the Beginning. I'm Pastor Lester Allen, and this is Pastor Mark Reynolds. How you doing today, brother?
Good, brother.
Good. We're happy to be with you again another week. We left off on last week in Genesis chapter 12. I think we in verse 4, and if we can pick it up right there.
So Abraham departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they had went forth into the land of Canaan, and to the land of Canaan they came.
I just want to stop right there for just a minute. First of all, we see that the Lord God has spoke to Abram and told Abram to leave where he was comfortable at. Now, a lot of times when God tells us to do things, we're really kind of comfortable wherever we are. And for God to actually, and we know it's God speaking, not our own personal desires, that God is telling us to do a particular thing. It is a difficult thing to forget what you know. But Abraham, or Abram at this particular time, did exactly what God has said. And I want to read something because he is considered the father of faith. From the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 8, it says, by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out, see, God called him to go out and to enter in a place which he should after receive as an inheritance, obey and went out, not knowing whither he went. See, a lot of times we want all the details from God. When God tells us to do something, we want all the details. Tell me how long I'm going to be traveling out here, how long I'm going to have to go through this, what's going to happen, what's going to be the results from the end. And Abraham, by faith, trusted God, because that's what that really is, that word of trust. He trusted God that you take me out and you'll deliver me also. And so that's why he was considered, and he's in the patriarchs line of faith and considered a father of faith. Matter of fact, Abraham was called God's friend because he believed God, and he was considered a friend of God because he believed him. And when he said he believed him, that means I trust you. And so Abraham trusted God. He went out and he sojourned in a land of promise. Promise is something I ain't got yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're looking for the coming king. Well, that's something I don't have just yet.
Yes.
But it's a promise. And so either you believe when a promise is made to you, or you don't believe. Abraham believed the promise of God. He sojourned in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So we see when he departed, and then it goes on, and that he took his wife, and he was 75 years old. He wasn't a young man. He had lived 75 years before God called him out, and he departed. And we see how the rest of us, through faith, are blessed because this 75-year-old man's obedience to God.
Yeah, I mean, Romans actually says, 8:14, as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God.
Amen.
And in this walk with Christ, he really needs to be Lord. So we really should be seeking him of where he wants us to be and what he wants us to do. Acts 17:26, from one man he made all the nations that inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they should seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from any one of us. And so if God is leading your life in the decisions of where you're going to live and work and who you marry, the major decisions, if God's leading that, he's going to be leading you to a place where you're going to be able to find him better and be able to do the life and the purposes that he meant for you better than if we had chosen our road. And that does get back to humility and faith, because there have been many times where I know I'm doing what I should be doing, but it's only because it's in my heart. I look around and see it, and what I see is not encouraging. I have to go by, when I prayed, I knew for sure this is the decision I should make. Well, the disciples, halfway through the lake, a storm hits. And Jesus said, go to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing what he asked them to do.
Right.
But in about the middle of the lake, when the storm's on,
Mm-hmm.
and before Jesus came to them, that's the time when the pressure's on.
Yeah, that's the most. Because I think God takes us through those different trials that he has for our lives and stuff like that, that our faith might grow stronger. And I'm praying for myself and for others also, that when God keeps sending trials in our lives, that we do better. It's like, it's like a something that happens, a test that comes up. You know how when your teacher used to come in and bring a surprise quiz, right? They tell you all the time, we might have a surprise quiz next week, and so we'll see how you be ready. And so if I was just to be ready, then when the surprise quiz would come up, I would be prepared for it and I would deal with it better. So I'm praying for myself and others that when the testing time comes, that we do better than we did the last time we went through a test, that we trust him earlier, that we go to him first. It's always, I tell the people that I shepherd, that I don't mind you coming to me, but don't come to me first. You should go to the Lord first. I'm just a man. I'll pray with you and for you, but go to the Lord first. With whatever's going on in your life, go to him, and then we could corporately agree together and ask the Lord to answer our prayers. But there's personal things that we go through in life, trials we go through in our lives and stuff like that. And we should be better the next time we go through there. But Abraham believed God at 75 years old, trusting, and we're all blessed through the Abrahamic covenant, that all the nations of the earth was blessed by this one man's obedience to God.
Tell you what I appreciate, brother. I need that. Everybody's personality is different, and maybe some people, my wife is much better at that. She'll say, well, we'll work it out, and we'll make do, and I'm more yeah, but how come we don't? We didn't, all the details of, like you said, why, Lord, how much, Lord. So that's why we're together.
Yeah.
She's just steady as a rock.
There you are.
To realize that we're not just here to fulfill ourselves, we're here to be transformed and changed, and that requires tests and trials and circumstances and how we respond. Well, look at verse 2. I will make of you a great nation.
Yeah.
That was after he said, leave everything you know, take everything you've got, so there's no looking back, and go. You have no idea where, but just go.
Yep.
And in the obedience of that kind of humility and faith, God said, I'll make you great, I'll bless you, I'll make your name great, and I'll put upon you. That same principles apply to us. If we follow the Lord, God will make us great. He intends to bring us to a place of real service and purpose. He'll bless us. He'll give us a name that we're honorable people.
Yeah.
And whoever blesses us, it'll be a blessing to them. And whoever comes against us is coming against God's plan and work.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And you really, it's a surprising thing. You would think that don't happen, but actually those are people that are fighting against the Lord's work. Even when John and Peter was captured, and Gamaliel had talked to them, or we talked to the people. He went up and stood up in the council and said, these men of Jerusalem, be careful what you plan to do to these men, because happily you might find yourself fighting against God. He said, if this work be of men, it shall come to nothing. If this, whatever we're doing, if it's by our own pride or something we're trying to well ourselves up in, something like that, it's going to fall to pieces. But if it's for God and you find yourself fighting, you're on the opposite side of God, that you actually find yourself fighting against the Lord and not us, and nothing that we're trying to do for his name's sake. You're fighting against the Lord. And that's what his warning was to them, that you might find yourself happily fighting against God's work by fighting against this. He said, just let it go, and then God will weigh it in the balances. So we see that once again. So we're thankful for Abraham's obedience to God.
Yes.
And that he followed it, and he's an example of what faith is all about. And if we were in Hebrews, he went on and he said that they did not receive the promises. So we're going to go on through this particular text. But Abraham, the promise God makes to him here, Abraham do not see that promise, but he trusts God. He saw the fruits of the promise because what we're going to talk about in a little while, in the next couple of chapters, God had made an impossible thing happen between him and his wife, who I told you that important part in verse 30, the bearing part. Because of that, Abraham's faith grew even stronger because he said, look what God has done. Look what God has done. Yeah. So nothing is impossible for him if he can do this mighty thing. And so that's what we see. So we pray that our faith grow as time grows on. Yeah. And I believe in the coming days and months and years, we're going to need that real Abrahamic faith to walk in faith and not by sight, because our eyes will lie to you. I was talking to our producer, and it was talking about vertigo. It was saying that, like you go down steps and, you're kind of woozy. Yeah. And so your eyes are lying to you. They're telling you the steps a little lower or a little higher, and they're not. Mm-hmm. So your eyes can trick you. I just thought about that when I was thinking about we walk by faith and not by sight. And my suggestion to him was to close his eyes and walk in the dark, and it would be better. But we pray the Lord that he heals him and bring him up out of that. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, and so Abraham passed through the land of Sichem and unto the place of Morek, and the Canaanite was there in the land. And the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. Mm-hmm. And there builded him an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, this is the first name given to a place of worship. We know from Cain and Abel that they had built the altar unto the Lord, but it didn't have a particular name. This, because now God is starting to separate his people. He's called a man out. God knows the whole plan of what he's going to do with this one man. And he calls him out, and this one man, because of God's promise, makes an altar, because that was the high place of worship for a long time before they went to Jerusalem. It was Bethel, the house of the Lord. It was this place right here, and even his descendants knew that this place had a particular majesty to it, where he communed and talked with God, and we'll see that all through Scripture. So this is the first time that the name Bethel is used, and that's once again we see. That's once again we'll talk to you before that's the nice thing about Genesis. You can find if you read later on and say, well, Bethel, where did that come from? Here it is. This is the first time it was used, and this is why it was used. Abraham had used it when he was setting up an altar unto the Lord. That's where the root came from. So we can find the truth of anything if we go back far enough. Go ahead, brother.
Let's see, verse 8. Yeah. And he removed from there unto a mountain in the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And Abraham journeyed going on still toward the south. Mm-hmm. And there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Mm-hmm. And it came to pass, when he was come near unto Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they shall kill me, but they shall save you alive. And I pray thee, say thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and for my soul shall live because of thee. Mm-hmm. And it came to pass that when Abraham was come to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. And the princess also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before the Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house.
Well, first of all, we see, and this happens wherever Sarah goes. And I had made a comment to someone at one point, Sarai at this particular point must have been a one beautiful woman, because she was actually an older woman at that time. Yeah. I think Abram was 10 years older than her. So she was 65 years old, but she must have been gorgeous, because he knew in advance, when I take you to Egypt and they see you, they'll kill me for you. He knew that. And, for those that will, he lied, he didn't lie because she was his half sister. She was the sister of by his mother and not by his father. They had different fathers, so he was a half sister, so he knew it was a half truth. We'll deal with that a little bit later on, because he does this again, and even his son does the same thing. Isaac does the same thing with his wife. Say that you're my sister, because they'll save me alive for that sake. And but God, because he had ordained that Abram and that Sarai would not be touched, would not be harmed, he puts a particular covering, a protection over her and over both of them, and we see how that unfolds in the next few verses. Go ahead, brother.
I just want to mention that.
Go ahead.
He said he built an altar unto the Lord, and they were called upon the name of the Lord. All the things we're sharing, a regular altar building in your life is what will enable you to stay ahead of what's coming, of what's going on. The time you spend in the Word and the time you spend in prayer to remind yourself humility is important, trusting God's important, don't go by sight. You've got to remind yourself and stay in that place of a renewed mind, so you can deal with the continued earthly promptings that are coming at us, to panic, to fear, to anger, to lust, to greed, to whatever. So he's building altars. And so now he's coming into, he does that periodically throughout his life, 13:4, 13:18, 24:9. We see him building altars. And it took time to build an altar.
Right.
They didn't just, like today, even if you build out of wood, you took stones, you had to get the stones, you had to pile them up. It wasn't something that was easy. And in our busy, God help us to make time for the Word. At morning, noon, and night will I cry unto thee. Time for prayer, time to keep that fresh, close relationship, so you can, because that's the only way you're going to be able to walk and follow God's leading. Especially in my experience, let's say His Word will be a light into your path. Yeah, it's only enough for a few steps. So if you don't stay close, if you don't keep the flashlight on, you're in the dark. Right. You stay close to God, you're able to keep stepping by faith. Right. Where if you don't spend time with God, pretty soon we go by sight. Yeah. And logic and emotion. Yeah, and you're going to stumble and fall. Jesus even warned. He said, a man walks in the light while he has the light. He don't stumble. He can see his steps. But when he walks in darkness, he stumbles all over the place. And anytime you walk outside of Christ, you're walking and you're groping in darkness. So we see that Abram didn't do that. He trusted God, and God ordered his steps. Go ahead, brother. And he entreated Abraham well, Pharaoh, for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. Let's stop right before a little bit further. See, God has actually sent him down to Egypt. Now remember, this is in the midst of a famine. That there's not a lot of food going on, but yet God sent him to the place that did have food. He sent him to Egypt. And he gathered the things of the Egyptians. Remember, he said he treated him fair for his wife's sake, which he thought was his sister. He gave him male donkeys, female donkeys. They gave him cattle. They gave him all types of stuff. Because remember, he sojourned with the substance that he had. Now he's gathering substance, and this plays out later on. Remember when Moses left Egypt, the Egyptian gave them gold and silver and all. They didn't leave empty. They got back pay. For all those years that they had labored for free, they got back pay. God made sure that they didn't leave empty. And here, God sent him down there, and he didn't send him away empty. He was richer after leaving Egypt, because God is building him. Even though he's sojourning, even though he's traveling, God is building Abraham's name, and God is blessing him even in the midst of what appeared to be trouble. Yeah. And like he promised, I will bless you. Well, we're seeing it come to pass here. Yeah. And then we see how he turned around and plagued the Egyptians. And we see that story plays out again and again in the text, where God blesses him,
but he plagues the people that are holding him captive, or that has his wife, and all those types of things like that. So we see that here's the illustration that those that bless you, I will bless, and those that curse you or mean you harm, I will deal with them myself. So God is illustrating that his promise is true, his word is true, and you can depend on what God has said. So we thank the Lord for that. Go ahead, brother.
So the Lord plagued Pharaoh in his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this that you have done unto me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why sayest thou, she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way."
Mm-hmm.
And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had.
Mm-hmm. See, so he didn't take back the stuff that they had accumulated. He said, "Look,
just go.
You take your wife and all the stuff that you got, and get out of here."
You know, isn't that like a premonition?
A premonition.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
of
right.
the coming leaving of Egypt.
Yeah.
When they finally left him, they left with great substance.
That's right.
And they said, "Just go."
Yeah, go. We don't care. Just get out of here. Just get out of here. That's how it is. I don't ran into it. I know you have too. In our walk with the Lord, that I have went and I've sat in meetings and I didn't have to hardly say anything. I was just a presence there. That the people that we were in the meeting with, they did all the talking on our behalf. And I just sat back there and kept my mouth quiet and said, "Look at God working. Mm-hmm. He's making conversation. They're going back and forth, lowering the price and putting certain circumstance. I couldn't have said it better myself, and all I have to do is say, "Oh yeah, okay, that'll work. Where do I sign?" Yeah. And so we thank the Lord for going ahead of us.
Yeah.
And doing those particular types of things. And it was funny that you had said what you said. See, God knows the things that we need, and until we start passing that quiz, He's going to keep on throwing it at us until we start getting a little bit more patient and stuff. He said, above all things, you are needed patience. And he always said, you're a helpmate, someone where the parts of your life where you are weak, they are strong. And where they're weak, you are strong in those types. And that's why it is called a helpmate, a perfect fit. So we thank the Lord for his wisdom and not relying on our own. Go ahead, brother.
All right. And Abraham went out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, unto the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and in silver and in gold. Mm-hmm. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, mm-hmm. between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. Mm-hmm. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. Mm-hmm. And there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle, mm-hmm. and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. Mm-hmm. And Abraham said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, between your herdsmen and thy herdsmen, for we are brethren. Mm-hmm. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself, I pray thee, from me. If you will not, if you will take the left, then I will go to the right. If you depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld the plains of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, mm-hmm. before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, mm-hmm. even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest into Zoar. And then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other.
Let's see right here. First of all, we want to see how the substance had got so great, but that was all part of God's plan too, because his covenant. Because you'll see, and we'll show it to you, that his covenant is directly to Abram, and once he separates himself from Lot, God renews his covenant. And he takes him up to a higher place. and he shows him all the land again. It's what's name, because once he separated himself. And so we see that God had allowed this to happen. That's the substance. So Lot didn't go away empty-handed. Lot had all of his substance too. But Lot used his eyes, and he went down to the plain. It was well watered. It was like a flat plain, and it was well watered. It was green, and that's why the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah built their cities around this fertile land, because they could feed the city from the land that was right there. So Lot, beholding it with his eyes, decide, hey, this is the place I'm going to pick. And because Abram once again trusted God, he didn't care if it was to the left or to the right, because he knew wherever he went, he would be blessed by God. He knew if he go to the right, I go to the left, God's going to bless me. If I go to the left, you go to the right, God's going to bless me. So that's how your attitude needs to be. That wherever God leads you to, if he's walking with you, if he's with you, he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. If the Lord is walking with you, whether you go to the left or to the right, he is with you. He's walking with you. So we talked about it, walk by faith and not by sight. So here it is right here. But Lot, we see the choices Lot made. That was not a wise decision that Lot had made. But God had a purpose and a plan for that, even for Lot. And so we see that Lot chose to go by his eyes, the well-watered plain where there was the city there. They could dwell there. His cattle could grow there, right outside of this wicked city. And be sure that they were aware that Sodom and Gomorrah was a wicked city. They knew it. I mean, the reputation of a city, because they trade through camel, they would see people, they would get news through people traveling through. They knew the reputation of Sodom and Gomorrah. They knew that before he even picked it. But a lot of times, we as believers, we'll go to an area that we really shouldn't go in, or be around circumstances that we really shouldn't be in, because we think that we're strong. Wow. And these are just the facts, that we can be strong, but the Bible tells us to remove ourselves from certain circumstances, or it's going to corrupt good habits.
Oh, yeah. And
bad company corrupts good habits. Go ahead, brother.
And look at, Abraham said, oh, let's not fight. Let's not fight. Keep love going. Let's not fight. If you want that side, I'll go to the other side. You notice Lot didn't say, oh, no, Abraham, no, you pick first.
No.
He said, oh, well, let me see.
Yeah, right.
I'll take that land.
Yeah.
And so when you choose material things or success over love, Lot actually just set himself up, and eventually he loses everything. But Abraham, as you mentioned, who chose love, God said in verse 14, look every direction you can look, I've given it to you. Even the part that Lot chose, he's going to lose that, and it'll wind up yours.
And that's amazing that you say that. When we're going to pick it up in the next couple of chapters, but once again, we're coming to close of another exciting show. But we'll pick it back up where we left off at
verse 11.
We'll pick it back up
11, 12.
On next week on chapter 13, verse 11. Once again, we'd like to thank our friends at Skyview Aerial Productions. Ask the Lord to continue on to bless them and to keep them. You might write to us at 45440 Butternut Ridge Road, Oberlin, Ohio, in care of Pastor Lester Allen. If you have any prayer requests, any questions about what we're going over, if you'd like us to emphasize certain points that you might not yet understand, or any question at all, we will do our best through the power of the Spirit to answer that question. Now I'm going to have my brother let you know about our exciting radio program that we have on Sunday nights, and have him just tell you about that, and then close us out in prayer, if you would.
Absolutely. It's on WOBC. It's the college, has its own little radio station, and it's WOBC 91.5 FM, Oberlin College Community Radio. It's on Sunday nights from 9 to 10. You should be able to get it in this area on your radio, but if there was any challenge with that, you can go on your computer and look up WOBC.org, and you can stream it right on your computer and listen to it that way. And what we're teaching there really dovetails very nicely with Genesis. Matter of fact, it talks about Abraham there as well. And so we'd love to have you for that. But let's go ahead and finish up with prayer. Lord, you told us to cleave, to cling unto the Lord, that it'll keep us alive, that it'll lead us in the right place. And I pray that, God, for myself and my brother here, as well as the people listening, that we will stick close to you, to walk in love and in humility, to ask your guidance on what decisions. If it comes up to strife, choose the way of love. And know that God, as a brother mentioned, God will take care of us. If we love, we'll never go without. I leave that with whoever's listening. If you keep walking in love, keep your heart free from anger and bitterness, resentment, walk in love, God will always provide for you. And I bless whoever's listening to receive those words and to walk in them in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name. Until next week, friends, God bless.